Good morning. Hopefully, your Monday is off to a good start. I can't believe we are already at the 17th of August, 2026. The summer is flying by, and it's been a hot one. But as this week has gone on, a couple different things are going on. One of the interesting things was that gasoline prices surged, went back up above $4 a gallon. Now they seem to have retreated a little bit. It's around 359 to 369 a gallon in Central Virginia in this area. Um, I have noticed I need to change the oil in our Mazda sometime in about the next 1,000 miles or so. And I went online and I noticed that the 5 quart jug of oil that was normally 23 to 25 is now like 29 to 32. I haven't been to Walmart to see if the shelf price has gone up, but now it seems that motor oil has gotten more expensive, like gasoline. Now, I'm not a petroleum expert. I don't know if the motor oil comes from the Middle East in the same amount or proportion as gasoline. I doubt it. I know that it's kind of the oil business is kind of tricky because most refineries in the USA are set up to refine heavier grades of crude. So if we have a bunch of light sweet crude instead of heavy sour crude, we end up exporting light sweet crude because we don't have the facilities to refine it. So I suppose if gasoline and energy and fuel are fetching a higher price overseas, then the American oil companies are obviously going to send it over there because they're in business to make money. Does that seem fair to us? Nah, probably not, but that's just the real world. That's how business operates. If you're making widgets in North Carolina and your widget sells for $10 to $12 in the United States, and let's say there's a shortage of widgets overseas in Europe and they're paying $18 to $20, what are you going to do? Are you going to sell them here for 10 to 12? Or are you going to sell them overseas for 18 to 20? If you're a good businessman, you're going to sell them overseas. And that's part of capitalism. That's part of how the system works. Um, of course, when you have a finite supply or the supply is constricted in any way and the demand stays the same or goes up, you're going to see higher prices. The same thing has to do with rents. If you have uh, more customers, more clients, more people who need homes, and you haven't built new construction or have available housing units for that higher number of people, well, then of course prices are going to go up. Um, with economics, it's not really what you call a zero sum game all the time, but when there's a situation where somebody comes out ahead, somebody else might not come out ahead. Now, the ideal is that you have a growing economy organically and you can grow your way out of the problem rather than trying to slice the pie into more pieces. Why not try and make a bigger pie? That's how you have real organic economic growth instead of just merely increasing the money supply, which means everybody has more money, but your purchasing power isn't what it was. So then you suffer from inflation. You have more money in your wallet, but each dollar doesn't go as far as it did before. But I think you all get the gist of that. We had all the 6 beagle puppies all got adopted. They're supposed to go and get neutered. I think it's Labor Day. The 6 different families who got them are all bringing them back on the same day for each of them to get fixed. That's part of the law in Virginia. When you get a dog from a shelter, you have to get it fixed. Obviously, you want to get them spayed or neutered so they don't have more, too many unwanted animals. I figured those beagles would go really quickly. They're very cute. We still have the mother here. We're fostering her at our house. She's very skittish. She really likes my wife. She's not too wild about me. She kind of tolerates me, but we are keeping her until she's healed from her puppy birth. Then she's going to get spayed, and then we will have her for maybe another week after that. So we're looking sometime early September. She's going to go up for adoption for her forever home. She's about 2 years old, probably weighs about 25 pounds. She's a lean beagle. She's a bench leg. She's got the short legs, but she's got the beagle head, the beagle feet, and everything else. I think she is a purebred beagle, and her puppies sure look like they were purebreds, although nobody has any papers. But anyway, so that's where that stands. I did a lot of driving over the last week, going to various different places, and something I've noticed in other states, the police are taking some kind of action against people who camp in the left lane. Unfortunately, they don't do that here in Virginia. We have signs that say slower traffic, keep right on many interstate highways. But the problem is, with the wording of that, the people who drive too slowly, especially those who camp out in the left lane, they don't see themselves as being slower traffic. They just think that everybody else drives too fast. I've done driving in other states, and up there it says left lane for passing only or keep right except to pass. I think that would be better signage. The fact that you have to have a sign telling people to do that, it just shows how badly our society has continually been dumbed down over the past 30 or 40 years. Driving behavior and driving etiquette are just, it's totally lost. And when I lived in Germany for a couple of years, it was awesome to drive on the Autobahn because people pay attention and they know what they're doing. It's harder to get a license in Germany as well. You have to go to what's called Fahrschule, driving school. And that takes a couple months and probably costs about $2,000. And you have to learn how to drive a manual transmission. They teach you about the rules of the road. They teach you how to drive, in bad weather conditions and at night and things like that. It's way too easy to get a driver's license in the USA. But I think the problem goes more beyond that. That's bad English, more beyond. The problem goes beyond that, where there's more to it. If you look at aggregate public behavior, you pull up to a place where there's a red light and you have to wait a long time to make a left turn into a shopping center or a major intersection, and there's litter and cigarette butts all right there, which means people are throwing it out the window. I didn't see any of that in Germany at all. And even though a lot of people smoke over there, you don't really see a lot of cigarette butts on the ground. But Germans view driving as a form of art. Whereas most Americans, they view driving as a way to get from point A to point B with as little effort as possible. They'd rather just, I was on 64 yesterday, Interstate 64 in Virginia, and I had to drive about 50 miles on it, and then I had to drive on another highway after that. But I passed probably 50 cars on the right-hand side. I'm going down the highway, and the speed limit's 70, and most people are going 70, 72, 74, even 76. But the whole left lane, there's like 30 cars in a parade, all in the left lane. And I went on the right lane and just passed everybody. And sometimes you'll be going down the road, everybody's moving along pretty well. Now the posted limit is 70, but the de facto speed limit is more like 80. And it's not unsafe to drive 80 miles an hour. If people knew what they were doing, you could probably drive 85 or 90, but Americans don't have the skill to be able to do that. Or I should say, they don't have the etiquette. Our cars have gotten smarter and drivers have gotten dumber. It seems to me that driving skills have gone way down since the manual transmission has all but disappeared. There used to be some level of skill required to operate a stick shift. Back then when cars had no power steering, or few of them had power steering, there was, you had to use a lot of cars didn't have power brakes. You had crank windows. You had to kind of pay attention to what you were doing. There was no blind spot monitoring, and most cars back in the day didn't even have a right-hand side view mirror on them. So I remember I think I had a Datsun and I had a Chevette, and neither of them had a mirror on the right side. So you couldn't really see. You had to, look twice to see if somebody was beside you in your blind spot. Um, Cars have gotten smarter and drivers have gotten dumber. Cars today are actually much safer than they were 20 or 30 years ago. Almost every car made has analog brakes. Most cars have blind spot warning system. The majority of cars have traction control, um, lane departure warning systems. We didn't have any of that back in the day. You just had to keep your eyes on the road. Um, Something else that I kind of lament in newer cars, everything is done through the touch screen. Okay. You get a new car and everything, even if you want to change the radio station or you want to adjust the air conditioner or um, change the fan speed or the temperature, anything like that, navigation, it's all in the touch screen. And you also get fingerprints all over everything. I have an old F-150 that I drive from time to time. It's our spare vehicle, and it's refreshing to drive it because nothing is beeping at you when people are driving around you. It has oversized mirrors on it with little convex mirrors in the corner, so you don't have blind spots to worry about. You don't have a backup camera, so sometimes if you're backing into a parking space and there's a vehicle behind you, you may have to get out and look. But you, the radio has a volume knob, and it has actual, a tuning knob to go from station to station. You got your 5 presets, and it's got a CD player in it. And the air conditioning control is 3 dials. One is for fan speed. The other one is for where you want the air to go, like at your face, on the floor, the defrost, or whatever. And then the third one is the temperature. And it's very simple. You have muscle memory. You don't need to take your eyes off the road. You're not looking at that screen. We have a Mazda, and it's got the screen, but it's got that little spin thing. You still have to take your eyes off the road briefly to use it. And that's kind of troubling. But with an older vehicle, you have muscle memory. You know where things are. There's actual buttons and knobs and dials. Like to turn on the headlights, you actually have like a three, you've got your off, parking light, then you got your headlight, and then you pull it out, and if you want your fog lights on. It doesn't have this thing where it automatically turns them on. The automatic on-off high beams that's a nice feature to have, but sometimes it goes kind of wonky, and it might detect a street light or something, and it'll turn your high beams off when you need them. Sometimes it will let another car get a little bit close before it turns them off, and then people flash their lights at you. So some of these things are kind of nice, but they can also be annoying, but they can be very expensive if something goes wrong. It's kind of like planned obsolescence. Let's say you have an older car, let's say you have a car that you buy a 2021 car. And let's say you've had the car 5 years, you've got 80 or 90,000 miles on it, and then something goes wrong with the screen. And it's like $3,000 to fix the screen. You have to take it to a dealer. Your friendly neighborhood mechanic can't fix that. That's by design. Other cars, like my wife has a Toyota, and the navigation in the app went away after 1 year. They want you to subscribe so that you can use the navigation. Well, we just use the one on our phone and use the the Auto Android. I think they call it Auto Android or Android Auto. If you have an iPhone, they've got the equivalent of that too, with an Apple Play or something. But anyway, it just seems like they want you to subscribe to stuff. I've heard that people who buy BMWs, the remote start doesn't work after a certain period of time, and the heated seats don't work. When you buy a car, you should own everything in that car. You shouldn't have to pay to subscribe to something extra that came with the car. That's one nice thing about the old F-150. There's also no tracking. A lot of new vehicles can track you, and they can, third parties can buy that data. So your insurance company could probably purchase data about how fast you're driving, how hard you brake, when you drive, and they could probably tack a surcharge on you without you even knowing it. they could say, well, you were, you were speeding. Um, it's like they're getting your own car to spy on you. Now, could they use that against you in the event of an insurance claim for an accident or something? I don't know, maybe so. But they don't want you to be able to fix your own vehicle anymore. If you buy like I have a 2004 F-150 with low mileage on it. That thing will probably outlast me. Maybe I'll hand it to my grandson someday, but it still has the original muffler on it and original set of brakes. It's got 64,000 miles on it, actual. The underside still looks clean, no rust or anything, and it's 22 years old. It's always been garage kept, apparently. Thing was like, I only had 55,000 on it when I bought it. Haven't even had it quite 2 years yet, but they don't want you. All these new vehicles, they have this automatic stop start, which totally drives you crazy. I've rented cars with it. You come to a stop sign and it shuts off the engine, or a stoplight. And we rented a car in Phoenix, and we rented another one in Florida that had it. And back then, this was in 2019, 2020, you couldn't delete it. You couldn't bypass it. New cars now that have it have a switch where every time you start the vehicle, you push a little button, has an A on it. You push that button whenever you start it, and it disables it so it won't shut off. But that's especially dangerous if you have a manual transmission too. Plus, when you're in a place like Florida or Phoenix and the engine does that, you don't have any air conditioning until it starts again, which we got around it by using the 2-foot driving method. Keep one foot on the brake and just slightly tap the gas with the other foot, and it defeats the system. And that's not really good for your car to do that, but it was a rental car. But still, they put these annoying things in cars, and supposedly for 2027, I don't know anybody who has a 27 car yet. They should be coming out soon. But it's got some kind of sensor where it senses your heartbeat, it looks in your eyes, and it uses AI to determine if you can drive or not. And it can shut you down if it thinks you're stressed out or you're under the influence of something or whatnot. And it'll just shut it down, and you can't appeal to anybody. I don't know if it shuts you down while you're driving, if it gives you a certain amount of time to get over to the shoulder. But suppose you're on the Tampa Bay Bridge, or you're going across the US 301 bridge from Virginia into Maryland, and all of a sudden your car decides to shut it down. Well, that puts your life at risk, not to mention the lives of other people on the road. I don't think they think these things out very well. I suppose there's going to be people in the aftermarket who are going to find a way to hack it and, bypass it. Somebody always will. But it makes you wonder, what are they trying to do? Do they want to have all vehicles somehow linked in like the Matrix, like it's a Borg? And if a politician decides, well, there's too much ozone in the air today, we're going to just shut everything down. So they shut your car down. They shut everybody down. You don't go anywhere. The people with the old cars are still going to be able to, they'll be able to drive theirs. So I just, technology sometimes stays ahead of the legal system. Then who has a right to the data? If there's a black box or a transponder in your car, who owns that? Does the car manufacturer own it? Does the government own it? Do they need to get a warrant for that information? Which brings me to another topic. They're talking about these flock cameras. Okay. Apparently, they have a good use in helping to solve crimes. They can put people at or near the scene of a crime. They can also exonerate people. People have been exonerated by security cameras. Now, there is no expectation of privacy when you're in public. I totally get that. A cop can drive up behind you and run your tag. He doesn't need probable cause, reasonable suspicion, or anything. He can just run it. They have these license plate recognition readers that can read hundreds of them in a second. They can drive through a parking lot and scan, and one of them will pop up. Hey, that's a stolen car. His insurance is no good. His registration expired, whatnot. They have access to that information, and there's not an expectation of privacy. But the problem comes in with not only the flock cameras, but these other cameras is who has access to that information? How long is it retained? And what do they need to do? What if you have a guy who's a cop and he wants to keep tabs on his ex-wife or his girlfriend. He can use his position to track where she goes or whatnot. That's an abuse of the system because it was for personal use, not trying to solve a crime. So there's a lot of privacy concerns and safety concerns and things like that that have to be addressed. And the politicians, the laws have not kept up with a lot of this stuff. How do you prevent abuse? Does civil rights just automatically take a back seat because technology has improved? Does the Fourth Amendment no longer apply? Does the Fifth Amendment no longer apply? These are things that are going to have to be answered. I'm not really opposed to the idea of flock cameras, but I'm really worried about the abuse of it. Suppose you have cameras on toll roads. Let's say you get on the highway and it snaps your picture at, 12 o'clock noon, and you drive 50 miles on a highway and the speed limit might be 60, and let's say you get there in 40 minutes. Well, that means you're speeding. Are you subject to getting a ticket? Because it would be kind of hard to beat that in court if you cover, 50 miles in 40 minutes. That means you're doing what, 75? How do you fight that? You got on here, you got off there, you covered that miles in that much time. How would you beat that? Of course, I don't think it would be a criminal citation. I think it would be civil, like a red light camera, where you don't have to face your accuser. It's a civil infraction. There's no points on your license. So I got one of those tickets in Washington, D.C. more than a decade ago. I get a picture of my car telling me I was going 36 and a 25. Well, the traffic was so heavy, I wasn't even going 25. But they send you a picture of your car. It's a $100 fine. I called my attorney at the time, and she basically said, well, do you want to go up there and fight it? Well, I'd have to take a day off work. You're going to lose more than $100, yeah? You're going to have to burn gas. You're going to have to pay to park up there. So what do? You beat a ticket. It's a $100 ticket with no points. What do you think people are going to do? It's a scam. They make hundreds of millions of dollars on it. You just mail in the check. You mail in the check for $100. I thought about taking a picture of a $100 bill and sending it to them, but that probably would have put me on a road to someplace I don't want to go. But my sense of humor, that was my instinct to do that. But anyway, yeah, that's something. And another thing going on is the war or the conflict in Iran. Are we winning this bigly, or is it all smoke and mirrors? I don't know. If this thing isn't wrapped up by about a month from now, we're in trouble. Anyway, have a great day.